What is up? This is your LA in a minute, and I'm here at Manzanar, now a historic site, but the site of one of the worst atrocities in modern American history. It was a concentration camp during World War II where more than 10,000 Japanese Americans were relocated against their will, one of 10 concentration camps in the United States. I don't know enough about Manzanar or this period in American history, so let's get into it. Manzanar is perhaps the best known of the 10 concentration camps in the United States that unjustly incarcerated 120,000 Japanese Americans during World War II. The incarcerations began just hours after the Japanese military attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii on December 7, 1941. By the end of the first day, the FBI rounded up almost 1,300 Japanese American community and religious leaders, arresting them without evidence and freezing their assets. By February of 1942, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which authorized the forced removal and internment of Japanese Americans living on the West Coast. That said, even prior to Executive Order 9066, the FBI was already searching the private homes of Japanese American residents on the West Coast, seizing items considered contraband, but in fact taking their personal assets. The hub and nexus for the relocation of the Japanese Americans was Terminal Island at the Port of Los Angeles. By March of that year, a civilian organization called the War Relocation Authority was given the power to administer the plan, and it was to be led by Milton S. Eisenhower from the Department of Agriculture. To his credit, Eisenhower only lasted 3 months before resigning in protest over what he characterized as incarcerating innocent civilians. But by then, the Army-directed removals had already begun, and people had 6 days' notice to dispose of all their belongings other than whatever they could carry. Anybody who was at least 1/16th Japanese was evacuated, including 17,000 children under the age of 10. Now, Manzanar, up in the Owens Valley, was the first of 10 concentration camps or detention centers to be established in the United States. The site was hastily converted from an existing agricultural area into a camp with living quarters, mess halls, latrines, and guard towers. Those incarcerated lived in barracks like these, and especially in an area with extreme weather conditions, over 100 degrees on a daily basis during the summer and freezing with piles of snow during the winter. That wasn't nearly enough to provide adequate care or shelter. Life in these small barracks had minimal privacy and inadequate facilities. In addition to the harsh weather, there were restrictions on movement, there weren't many job opportunities, and there was a lack of basic amenities. That said, many of the incarcerated residents formed communities, established schools, and participated in cultural and recreational activity whenever they could. Many also protested against this unjust treatment and asserted their rights as American citizens, including an uprising in December of 1942 when there were 10 fatalities. Finally, on November 21st, 1945, 10 days after the war ended, Manzanar was closed. Those incarcerated had to completely rebuild their lives. Many lost their homes, businesses, and savings, and they continued to face prejudice and discrimination in the coming years and decades. Finally, by 1976, President Gerald Ford finally repealed Executive Order 9066. Finally, in 1988, U.S. Congress issued a formal apology and passed a Civil Liberties Act, which awarded $20,000 each to over 80,000 Japanese Americans as reparations for their treatment. Today, Manzanar is a historic site and a memorial to the Japanese Americans who are incarcerated and a reminder of the importance of upholding civil liberties and protecting the rights of all Americans. So Manzanar is absolutely historic, and even though it's hauntingly beautiful, make no bones about it, this is the site of one of the worst atrocities in modern American history. All right, LA, it's been a minute.